Welcome to Speak the Truth in Love, the Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia on WCGA 1100 AM, where we do speak the truth in love based on Ephesians 4:15. In today's woke PC culture, there are many forces that want to stop free speech, especially for people of faith. Good men and women must be willing to stand up for their faith and be the salt and light to preserve our freedom. True freedom comes from faith in Jesus Christ. And John 8:32, God's word says, the truth will set you free. And Jennifer Wyatt, it's great to have you here today as my guest.
I'm excited to be here, Clint, and I'm looking forward to sharing about PAL, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, and I hope everyone tunes in on Saturday morning.
Amen.
At 8:06 a.m.
Amen.
on WCGA 1100.
Very good. I appreciate that very much. And one of the things that I want to be sure that we say is the reality of what you're dealing with in life. You know, the ministry that you're involved with tell us about what that's going on with that.
Well, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones is a program that started in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's really a program of parents helping parents. I know that you've probably heard that the only person that can help an alcoholic is another alcoholic. And I know that isn't 100% true, but it's kind of the same thing with parents. The only person that can help a parent with an addicted loved one is a parent who has an addicted loved one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So It's
Okay.
a wonderful program.
Tell us about the individual. Where did it start? How did y'all get involved with it?
Well, it started in Phoenix, Arizona, like I said, by a gentleman named Mike Speakman, who is a licensed addiction counselor. And he was working in a program where they did have families coming in and helping the families also. And he realized that how much helping the families ended up helping the addict or the alcoholic. So they ended up developing this program, and it started in 2006 and made its way out of Phoenix. And now there are over, 209 meetings across the United States in 37 states.
Very good. And is it very much faith-based?
It is a faith-based program, which I really, really liked about it.
Okay. Well, tell us what's the difference. Some of them, like AA, is higher power.
Right.
And tell us about this.
Well, let me tell you how I came to it. So my daughter was in a enthusiastic sobriety program when she was 16. And the program was designed for teenagers and young adults. And parents were required once a week to come to a meeting. So my husband and I started going to the meetings. And the greatest thing about it is I realized I wasn't alone. I remember a woman walking up to me and hugging me and just saying to me, "You're not alone in this." And I just sobbed. It was just such a wonderful feeling. So anyway, over time, my husband and I were invited to be part of the leadership for the program. So what we did was weekly, we met with new parents. And I loved that. I realized that it was definitely a calling for me. I just wanted to encourage them and just be there for them and to let them know that they were not alone in this program. So when my daughter turned 18, she decided to walk away from the program. And I decided that because of the age of the kids involved in this, I didn't want to be a stumbling block to some of these parents that had 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And for me to say to them, my daughter's left the program and she's relapsed, but I'm here to help you and encourage you.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of felt awkward, especially when you're dealing with that age group. So I realized how much I missed it, though, helping parents. So I was on social media one day and I read an article and it mentioned Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, and it talked about this program from Phoenix and that it was faith-based. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I'm looking for, because I had been going to Al-Anon for a long time. I love the Al-Anon program very much. It saved me in a lot of ways. But I really missed the component of being able to speak about God and Jesus Christ specifically.
Absolutely.
And being able to pray out loud for my child and things like that. So I found this program and I reached out to them and I didn't hear back. And I just kept reaching out and telling them I wanted to facilitate a meeting. And I was living in Charlotte at the time. And they finally got back to me and they said, there's another lady in Charlotte that wants to start a meeting. Would you like to do it? Maybe be co-facilitators with
Sure.
her. So I said, sure. So I met my friend Sandy, and we became really, really close instantly. And we started the meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, 6 years ago this May.
That's fantastic. Where do they meet here in the St. Simons, Brunswick area?
Here in St. Simons, we meet on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 at St. Simons United Methodist Church.
And how long does the meeting last?
It's an hour and a half, 6:30 to 8.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you and talk to you, or how would they do that?
The best thing to do is go to the PAL website, which is palgroup.org.
Okay.
And
How are
they
you
can,
spelling that?
PALGROUP.org, and look up meetings, and you can find the St. Simons meeting, and it has all my contact information. Unfortunately, my email address for PAL is kind of a lot, so it's easier for them to just
Very
do that.
Good. That sounds good. Now, when you think about someone that has gone through this, you mentioned your own story, and again, part of recovery, 9 times out of 10, seems to be relapse. So, you know, it's very normal from what I understand. Of course, coming out of that lifestyle myself, I understand that a lot of times getting back into addiction and coming back out is part of recovery. And a lot of people have been through that. If somebody's going through that, what would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to get as much help as they can, go to as many meetings as they can, know that they're not alone. We just recently experienced a very difficult relapse that took me completely by surprise. And what was so interesting about it is you're told that the disease is progressive even when someone ceases use.
Right.
And when they start up again, they're going to be right where they were. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, my daughter just went down so fast that it blew my mind. And it really made me realize how difficult this disease is, how cunning it is. And so because I've been through that, and actually when I started the PAL meeting in Charlotte, my daughter was in deep drug use then. And it was just so good for me to be able to help other parents, and having my daughter being the one that was the worst case of the whole group.
Wow. And of course, I know she's getting through it and doing much better. Praise God for that. And again, that's one reason, you know, a lot of people think that they can just go have one drink, or if they're smoking pot, one joint or whatever, and they don't realize that one time of going back, you could just be totally within a couple of weeks. And that's one of the main things that I learned. I know when I went through Ridgeview in Marietta, Georgia, Smyrna, Marietta, and that's one thing they told me when I left. You know, you're gonna be back here, you're gonna be in a gutter or whatever, because I was leaving the program a little bit early. And they said, if you ever smoke again, in which marijuana is my drug of choice, that you'll be right into it within weeks. And they were 100% right. I mean, a couple months later, I stayed away from it. And then again, you see an old friend that you hadn't seen in a while, and next thing you know, you think you can just do a little bit and play with it, if you will, but you can't. You have to totally stay away from it. And you cannot, if you're addicted to marijuana, you can't go have a few drinks, because the drinks may not be your problem. The problem would be it makes you weaker, and then you might take a toke from a joint or something. So, or, you know, get out a bong or whatever they use nowadays. And I understand marijuana, of course, is much stronger now than it was when I was in it. And of course, the psychosomatic problems that young people are having, especially the things I'm hearing about young boys that are smoking it younger and younger. And when we have a country that wants to legalize marijuana as if it's no big deal, I just can't disagree with them more. I mean, it absolutely lowers your IQ, it lowers your motivation, and that's just not a good combination when you want to grow up and be productive and enjoy your life. And it makes you lazy, and you want to just sit around and eat and watch TV or play video games. And so many people are caught up in that addiction of even video games because of their addiction to other things. And so I just want to encourage everybody out there, if you have someone that is playing with it at 14, 15 years old, that you would encourage them not to do that, and go ahead and make the tough decisions to go take them to meetings yourself, go with them to meetings as a parent or guardian or whatever, sibling, and try to get them back out of it. And even though in my case, my parents tried that and they tried to love me and help me, and
Hmm.
they had meetings with other friends of
Hmm.
family members that were in it. They tried to help us, but until sometimes someone's ready to quit, they're not going to quit. The beauty of my situation was I always knew I wanted to quit,
Hmm.
and I'm grateful for
That is
that
the beauty.
because a lot of people get into it and they're like, I don't ever want to quit. I like it too much. I
Right.
like this is covering up my pain or whatever. And let's go to some of the reasons that you hear people saying that that's why they're using. Why do they like to use?
To just, not face reality a lot of the times. They just don't like whatever. I mean, with social media today with kids, I am so thankful that I didn't grow up with that
Yes.
because I can't imagine what they go through every day. And just seeing, not being invited to a party or somebody making a comment about the way they look or whatever, especially with girls. I know it's very common with boys too, but they just start feeling bad about themselves, and they're searching for approval,
Yes.
some kind of approval, and unfortunately a lot of times it ends up being negative approval.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. And I think about, you're right, so true about the pressures that we were under. And I just think about it when we went home from school, we were pretty much done.
Right.
The only way somebody could spread a rumor or whatever typically was maybe by phone calls or whatever. And we didn't have this social media, as you stated. And so I think we really, as parents, need to be very aware of that. We're going to take a quick break. This is Clint Day from Speak the Truth in Love. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love. Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Jennifer Wyatt, and we're talking about pals and parents that are helping get kids get out of addiction primarily. So let's go back to this, the issue of how do we guard our children from getting involved with this type of thing?
That's the $1 million question, right? um, we tried and it didn't work for us. We try to educate our children, but you're fighting the world, and the world wants to take them out, and the world is full of lies, and they're believing those lies. So it's really a tough battle.
Absolutely. Well, I know the one thing for me was definitely growing up in the church. It
Hmm.
definitely helped having those foundational
100%.
principles. 100%. A lot of people are not going to church. They're not finding a church that's preaching the word of God, maybe, or they just really don't want to go in that direction nowadays. We have a lot of people. We know there's a quote, great falling away from the church,
Hmm.
which Jesus has said clearly that that'll be part of what we know as end times, and we know the birth pains are getting closer and closer every day, and that reality is facing us. But again, I think those foundational truths, that's one thing I always knew, that I did not want to be this way when I was 50. I
Right.
knew that. I knew that I wanted to be out of it. It's interesting, though, in my particular case, and I've shared this before with other people on this program, is a lot of my addiction toward the marijuana and the partying turned to the family drug of workaholism and performance.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times that we get caught up in that workaholism and performance as parents, we neglect what the child is necessarily going through, the defeats they are having as a teenager or
Hmm.
whatever. And I think it's always really important. I always want to remind parents to really pay attention to even small defeats in your child's life.
Yeah, we were really trying to pay attention. I can honestly tell you that. Our daughter was a fabulous athlete
Yes.
and tore her ACL when she was 14. And she tells me just that first pain pill, she knew instantly that was her thing. She
Mm-hmm.
just loved it. I had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
I monitored the pain pills. She wasn't getting more than she was supposed to at home, which didn't matter. It already happened. So she sought for them elsewhere.
Right.
And then after that, we didn't really recognize how bad she was struggling with her whole identity because she lost her athletic identity. And we were trying to get her help through the medical community, which really wasn't helping us at all. And it's really a frustrating, sad thing that a lot of parents go through.
It's very, very true. And I remember my son had some kind of injury. I forget exactly what it was, and they had given him some kind of pain pills. And he got off them. He didn't need them anymore. He had that period of where he kind of felt really good. And I know from my addictive nature, I said, I'm just going to get rid of them. I threw them away.
Oh, yeah.
And then a day or two later, he said, Dad, I'm really kind of hurting today. Do you mind if I have one of those? And I said, buddy, I am so sorry I threw them away. I just didn't want them around me at all, because I know how I am with those things. And again, I think that's one thing parents need to be aware of is sometimes they'll take literally your own medication. And I remember we had what was called Quaaludes growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's dad had a heart attack or something, had this drug, and you could sell them for what back then, $5 a piece or whatever. And they were a very popular thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the same thing today. I don't know what the new drug is. You would know better than I. I mean, we hear about fentanyl all the time, which is a very inexpensive, man-made
Mm-hmm.
drug that's very available, as we know, but it's also so dangerous. I mean, it just doesn't take much of it at all to get you very high, but also to kill you.
Right.
And go ahead.
But so they're putting fentanyl in everything. And unfortunately, there are a lot of addicts who become immune, to it. So they don't start off using fentanyl. They start, say, if they're a heroin addict, they start using heroin, and then they want to get a better high, a better high, a better high, and so they're constantly chasing that high, and fentanyl gets introduced, and just a little tiny bit, and then they can get to where they're injecting 100% fentanyl, and they're now addicted to fentanyl, and it doesn't kill them because they've become sort of immune to it. Their body has. But then it happens all the time where a kid will buy a pill from someone and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dead instantly.
Right. Well, and again, I think it's over 100,000 times a year in America.
Oh, it is.
Now. And again, we've talked about that before in this program. You think about 58,000 men died in the whole Vietnam War, however many years it was, but every year, over 100,000 people are dying, mostly fighting age men are dying from drug overdoses, coming in mainly from Mexico, created mainly the product in China, coming over here. And China's just laughing at us as we allow those people to bring those drugs over here.
Right.
And they're killing our fighting age men without even firing a shot. And we're paying, and those young men are paying to do that.
Right.
I have a friend that happens to be, angry at Trump, and he tends to be more of a Biden voter. And I just can't understand. I sit there and I go, how can that be okay? That's just not okay. How we've allowed the border to come over, people just come over with all these drugs, and he can't really explain it. It's like, well, they made their choice. And I'm just like, well, buddy, I want to just tell you something. I was in the middle of that stuff, and I remember one time I took a bunch of what's called Black Beauties, which is like a speed that I had gotten for being able to stay up and study for exams. But then one day I decided I wanted to get because addiction, just get a little higher than I normally would with it. And I remember laying in that bed with my head about ready to explode, my heart about ready to jump out of my chest.
That's very
literally wanting to die, but I didn't. I just slept it off, and fortunately didn't die. And but plenty of people I've known that have done that. I mean, they have absolutely got a hold of cocaine or whatever, trying to finish a job, and they stay up all night. They literally blow out their heart.
Right. I know 3 people that lost kids within a month period this past fall, all from fentanyl overdoses.
Wow. Here in Brunswick area?
No, not in the Brunswick area.
Okay.
And they were all from, 2 from Charlotte and 1 from Raleigh.
Okay. Well, regardless, I mean, it's still terrible, still tragic. But again, I think we need to be very aware of that, and people that are caught up in that, the addictive cycle. I mean, how do they know what you're getting?
They don't.
They don't know. And that's just the whole thing. What is it laced with? And of course, even you go out on a date or go to a bar, you've got to be very careful. I mean, I know ladies nowadays are being told, really make sure you hold your drink. You don't let anybody touch that drink. And if they quote buy you a drink, you make sure you're right there with it to make sure it's a Coke or whatever.
Right.
not what'll hurt you for sure. You got to really pay attention. So what are some other ideas when a parent is having that battle? We're gonna take a break here in just a second, but what are some other things a parent can do to help intervene and really be a part of, trying to help their child avoid that? But let's take a quick break. This is Clint Day with Speak Truth and Love. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speak Truth and Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Jennifer Wyatt, and we're talking about children and young adults that are caught up in addiction, how parents can help them get out of it. But what are some other ideas or warning signs that you ought to be looking for as a parent? Let's go with warning signs of what there's something going on, but you really can't put your finger on it with your child or young adult.
Well, when their life starts falling apart, becoming unmanageable, they can't keep a job or, whatever, that's usually a telltale sign that something's going on. But really, with PAL is a lot like Al-Anon. They're trying to help the parent or the spouse or whoever to learn to cope with their life and learn how to live their life despite what's happening that they can't control. And we can't control other people.
No doubt about it.
So PAL has a curriculum that's awesome. They have a lot of different topics like delayed emotional growth. Acceptance is a big one. That's one of the most difficult.
Delayed emotional growth. Let's expound on that. What does that mean?
Well, a lot of times a lot of people start using drugs in their teens or early 20s. And so they tend to delay their emotional growth from whenever it is that they start using drugs. So if your child starts using drugs at 16 and they're now 30, a lot of times they still kind of act like a 16-year-old emotionally because they didn't learn how to cope with emotions. They didn't learn how to cope with life because they were constantly trying to hide from it. So that's one of the big things that PAL talks about. It helps us to learn to treat our children like adults because they are adults despite how they're acting. We need to treat them like adults. If nothing changes, nothing's going to change.
Correct.
So if we keep treating them like a child, they're going to continue to act like a child for sure. But if we start trying to guide them to learn how to solve their own problems like we should with adults, then it's amazing what they can do.
Absolutely. So when you start play that out, you can.
Okay, for example,
how does that work?
From my own experience, our daughter was a teenager when she started using drugs, and she would badger us to death about whatever, just beg for whatever it was she wanted. If she wanted to drive the car or whatever, go somewhere, whatever. And you just got to the point where you oftentimes would let them do the thing that you didn't want them to do. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that behavior continues. So as say when she was 18 and she didn't live with us anymore, she would badger me about something. And I realized this is an adult. I need to treat her like an adult. And I need to just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be doing that. And it was amazing how once I put some boundaries up to protect me, how much it helped her. So the more I tried to guide her to solve her own problems when she needed money for whatever, I would say, well, what are some things that you could do to earn that money to get her thinking and acting like an adult?
Mm-hmm. That's good. All right. Now, how about when you find in a situation where they're, I'm going to be out of my house. I'm getting kicked out of my apartment and I'm going to be living on the street if you don't get in here and pay for this. What is a parent to do about that?
Well, that's emotional manipulation for
Totally.
sure. I am going to tell you every situation is the same, but every situation is entirely different.
Absolutely.
Too. Family dynamics are always going to be different. So for us, when those kind of things happen, I'm so sorry. I hope you figure it out. Would you like some suggestions?
Sure.
Do you want my help? By suggestions, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And if it was yes, well, perhaps you could go to Salvation Army and, get a bed there,
How about when somebody wants to bail them out? I mean, you've got grandma over here listening to her and doesn't want her living on the streets. So she's going to enable her, right? And grandma says, hey, I'm just going to give her a couple $100 and she can stay at the Holiday Inn rather than going to.
We're powerless over people, places, and things.
Absolutely.
We're powerless over our kids. We're powerless over grandma. We can try to educate grandma and tell her that perhaps her enabling the child is only going to make things worse because it's going to give whatever money they have, they're going to use for drugs. And now they don't have to worry about a place to stay.
Right, but honey, whatever. I just don't want her to die.
Right.
Nobody does, right?
There's nothing that I can do about it except try to educate grandma and then pray that grandma will stop.
Absolutely. Because again, what does that person need?
Right. What that person needs is to hit rock bottom and to realize they've got to surrender to the Lord in order to get their life together.
Right. How does somebody know if they've reached rock bottom?
I don't think they know it till they know it. We, as parents, often think our kids have hit rock bottom when they're not even close.
Mm-hmm.
So when they end up in that jail cell, and that might be their rock bottom, it might be the first arrest, it might be an overdose that's their rock bottom. You never know.
Absolutely. DUI or whatever
Mhm.
they call them for drugs. Okay. Now, how about, again, some other solutions that you would recommend to someone?
Well,
What does PAL teach the parents?
PAL teaches parents to stop enabling. I mean, we have a lot of material about that. Try to treat them like an adult. You don't enable adults. If you try to help them learn how to solve their own problems. We talk a lot about just having a healthy adult relationship with our child, which is often very difficult, and we just have to try to speak to them in love, with love and kindness, but with boundaries at the same time. And it's tricky because a lot of times they're bucking at every single thing that you're not doing that they want you to do or whatever, but trying to just focus on those healthy adult relationships and learning to respond to them instead of reacting to everything that they do.
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah. So I never knew that reacting was a negative thing. I thought overreacting was a negative thing. Well, no, reacting is a negative
Absolutely.
thing because it's an emotional.
Amen. Well, we'll talk about that. We're going to take another quick break. This is Clint Day from Speak the Truth in Love. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love. Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Jennifer Wyatt, and we were talking about rock bottom. And tell us the difference between, say, rock bottom and surrender, if you will. You mentioned that. So tell us about that.
It's really just my opinion. So to me, rock bottom happens when they are looking at their lives and going, my life is a shambles. I don't have a place to live. I don't have a job. Yes. This is the addict. I don't have a job. I don't have any friends. I don't have a relationship with my family. I don't have anything. And they are starting to be aware that that's their rock bottom. But I think surrender is what's required in order to gain sobriety. And surrender's when, okay, what am I going to do about it? Lord, help me. Crying out to the Lord, because he promises if you cry out to him, he will be there for you and help you.
Amen. That is so true. And when you think about, again, the word surrender, I mean, we just want to put our hands up, right? Raise the white flag. And I know that my mom is actually big on that, you surrender everything. You surrender your will to God. You submit to his leadership.
And surrender means you will do whatever it takes.
Yes.
And so a lot of times with rock bottom, oh, I'll go do that 30-day program, or I'll, go to AA meetings or whatever, but they're really not willing to surrender and do whatever it takes to get sober.
Right. How important is that discipline of going to meetings?
In my opinion, I think it's very important. I think it takes a community. It's about relationships. Addiction is lack of relationships, and the opposite of that is having those connections. It's important to stay in that community, to be around people that are all working on the same thing, and it's a very positive thing. And they're trying to help each other, encourage each other every step of the way.
Okay. And then also, someone had asked, I have a different worldview maybe than my child. They tend to be, they live in Los Angeles and they have a very left-leaning attitude. You gave some good wisdom on that. How would I communicate with that child? Because I still love them, of course, but I can't stand their politics or the people they're hanging out with or whatever. But I know that I have to have a relationship with them. How do I build that without letting my own views get in the way or hurt the relationship?
It's really, really tricky for sure. We have to learn to live and let live our life, and let everyone around us live their lives the way that they want. And when it
That's
comes
how
to
we raised them.
Right. But
we
when
want to be independent.
But when it comes to our children, we have to figure out a way to be loving and kind no matter what. So obviously avoiding any kind of political conversation because it isn't
Sure.
going to go anywhere.
Right.
So finding things to talk about, making a list of things to talk about. So when
Literally
you
make a
call them,
list.
literally make a list.
That's a good idea.
And with parents,
Because
of
I'm always
addictive-
trying to find things to talk about.
right
I
with
run out pretty quick.
right.
When I can't talk about Jesus, it's like, okay, well, there's a 90% of what I like to talk about. You know?
Right,
It's
right.
Like, wow.
But with parents of addicted loved ones, I've often told parents, make a list of things that you want to say, things that you don't want to say, so you make sure you don't say them when they call. Because a lot of times you're triggered and you're going to react to something.
What's something you don't want to say with an addict?
Tell them what to do in any way, shape, or form because they want to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we as parents think we're not trying to control them, we're trying to guide them and help them and shape them.
How do we help guide them versus tell them?
Well, which you can do with a healthy adult, emotionally healthy adult, you can kind of do that. But with an addict who's trying to control
permission
everything,
hey, are you asking me to give you an idea, or is it
right?
just,
You ask permission. Do you want a suggestion? Do you want my help? Are you asking for help?
Mm-hmm.
I can help guide you.
Yes, I want you to help me with my rent.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, but I can help you learn how to find a job.
Well, I don't have
so
any
you can
food in
pay
the
your
refrigerator.
I'm really sorry about that too. And I can help you find a job in order to be able to buy food to put in your refrigerator.
So you help me find a job.
Help you
Yeah.
figure out how you can find a job.
Okay.
I'm not going to help you find a job.
Good.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Exactly.
It's really
we
great.
did that, didn't we, a few times?
Well, I've done a lot of things a few times, and once you realize,
it
just
just wears you out.
Right? Just because
wears
you're
you
invited
out.
to get on the roller coaster doesn't mean you
Trying
have to
to
get
fix
on.
somebody else just
Right.
wears you out. I've got several friends. They're always calling me to help fix somebody else, and I'm always like, "Man, you're wearing me out.
You can't.
I don't want to do it."
Right.
I mean, with all due respect, if you want to go help them, they're calling you at 4:00 when they'd got to be somewhere at 5. They need a ride. I'm so sorry.
Right.
That's just their challenge, you know.
Right.
And we've got to learn to not try to fix people.
Right.
It's amazing how we can get so caught up in that.
Right.
And anyway, so how about any other advice? What other things?
Well,
would you see?
other advice I have, I've seen the PAL program really help a lot of people. I have one friend specifically, when she first started coming to PAL, her son was, I think in his early 20s, he was living at home and using heroin in their home, not working, not doing anything. And she was living in absolute crazy. Not only was he there, his girlfriend was living there too. And
wow.
When she first started coming to PAL, I thought, this is a person that needs help. Honestly, the program helped her so much.
That's so good. Well, we're going to take another quick break. This is Clint Day with Speak Truth and Love on WCGA 1100 AM. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speak Truth and Love. Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Jennifer, and we're talking about that connection and community and the importance of having that community to help you with an addict get out of it. Tell more about that.
Well, I've often heard that addiction is the opposite of connection. And so how important connection is. And I know even for parents, when you have a child that's struggling in addiction, you want to isolate, you want to hide.
Right.
Addicts isolate and hide. Most of them that are hardcore addicts they're not doing drugs with a whole bunch of people. They're off by themselves. Mm-hmm. Using. So community is so important for both of us.
Right.
To know that you're not alone and you're
Absolutely.
Encouraging each other.
And that's why church or pals, other groups.
Whatever it is.
Healthy community.
Right. Healthy community.
Healthy
100%.
community. I mean, you mentioned the heroin guy that with the family or the family let him stay in the house with his girlfriend, which is crazy. But I remember when I was growing up, I had one friend that his parents had him down in the basement, and we would go over there, and they went to my church, and we would go down there and party in his basement. And I knew they smelled it upstairs, but they felt like it was a way they could protect him.
Right, exactly.
Because he wasn't out driving the car and, getting DUIs or whatever. They could protect him.
Right.
But in the meantime, the guy's dealing drugs and stuff out of his basement. His mom and dad are up there clueless about what really is going on. They just know a lot of people come and go. In today's world, I mean, they would be, found out and potentially lose their house if they
Right.
let that go on. But back then, it was definitely different. So, again, a parent that's caught up in that
Right.
enabling.
Well, so
We've only got a few minutes, so
right.
get them out of that
Addiction
enabling. Yes.
addiction and alcoholism are family diseases.
Mhm.
It affects the entire family.
Absolutely.
So a way it affects a parent is we often end up doing things we would never do in our right mind. But the addiction has made us just as crazy, really, as the addict. It's a different way, but it's the same.
Okay. So the high ID person, the addict,
hmm
quits. What happens to the house?
What happens to the house when they
Yes.
quit?
Yes.
Everything changes.
Everything changes.
So with
Sometimes people don't like it.
no. So
I've been
what I was
enabling
going to
him.
say, right?
He's been my ministry. I've been,
They don't know what to do.
yes.
100%.
So Pal can help him with that.
100%. If they're going to choose to want to make changes, if they want their life to be different. Unfortunately, a lot of people say they want their life to be different, but they don't do any actions to make it different. And it
What are some actions they can do to stop that turmoil that they've gotten so used to living with? Now the person's no longer an addict. What does everybody do? Everybody
start
has
taking care of themselves.
Okay.
So I
Focus
would
on taking care
encourage
of
them
themselves.
to
Let
start
the addict take
eating
care of
right,
themselves, right.
start exercising, go to get some sort of mental health, like
Which
go
they
to a
should be doing
counselor.
all along.
Right.
But a
But
super
they don't tend
focus.
to do that.
Right.
They tend to isolate in the house.
They're sitting around talking about the attic all day.
And
He's
their
doing
head
this.
is spinning
Right.
out of control.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Start taking care of themselves. And so when the addict, even if they are still using, when the addict sees you disengage and you're starting to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
it really throws them for a loop.
Yes.
It really does.
Yes.
And so
And then there's going to be a lot of changes. I remember when I quit smoking pot, my brothers, younger brothers, were like, "Man, maybe you ought to start smoking again because you're mean. You're too hyper. You're too, black and white. You've really changed so much. You used to be so laid back. I mean, it's like I remember one time I was smoking pot and she asked me to pray, and part of my prayer was help mom be cool.
Yeah.
And they laugh about it to this day. But I mean, at least I had some fundamentals to pray. But you know how it is. But when they stop, it's like, what happened? There's something going on. The former disorder in the house is upset.
Right. That's
so other ideas.
If you haven't,
some other, yes.
if you haven't gotten help all along. And I'm very, very thankful that I started going to meetings very early on and got help for myself. And so
But I keep hearing the same thing over and over. I'm tired of hearing the person saying the same thing over and over at those meetings. Why should I keep going?
and give them encouragement and give them hope and to see that you can live your life and have joy in your life despite what's going on.
That's right. You can live your life.
You can laugh. You can lead. You can facilitate a meeting when your daughter is out on the streets shooting heroin, and you can help other people and laugh.
Mm-hmm.
That speaks volumes to people.
That's right. So how did you get to that point where you really could separate that?
I had to accept the things I couldn't change. And learn to change the things
Which
that
is
I
one
could.
of the 12 steps.
It's the serenity prayer.
Absolutely.
And so the acceptance was the huge, huge thing for me because my daughter, like every time I accepted what her new behavior was, there would be something worse or something worse would happen, just whatever. And it took me a little while each time to accept it. And I had to also learn to accept the fact that she could be dead at any time. And truly accept that.
And that's her choice. You can't.
Right.
You can't
There's
change
nothing I can do about it.
That's right. It's not your fault.
It's not my fault because people have free will. God gave everyone free will. We can't control anyone. They're not puppets. We're not puppets.
That's right.
So once I learned to truly accept that deep in my heart was the only way I could move forward with my life at all.
And really trust God.
Exactly.
Total trust.
Let go and
like
let
you said,
God.
surrender, just total surrender. I give it all to you, God. They're your child. You create them. You allow me to be a parent for a season. I'm still their parent
right.
for their entire lives, and I'm in my entire life. So I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm going to totally surrender to you and give it to you. And it's like my mom always taught me, Romans 8:28. It's going to work together for good. We don't understand. This is not good. This is not fun. but it is going to work
Mm-hmm.
together for good.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to encourage everybody out there to get a hold of PALS if you need that. Be aware, go to meetings, be involved, help your family member get out of it, but realize you don't have any control over it.
That's
It's
right.
totally up to God and His timing and the person's willingness to surrender, as you've already stated. Well, everybody, it's been great to be with you, Jennifer, today. Thank you for today. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for Speak the Truth in Love and listening to us on WCGA 1100 AM from St. Simons Island, Georgia. Remember, every day is a God day.